Opportunities. My name is Patrick Esther, and I'm Director of Content at Codio. For the past year or so, Codio has been hard at work at offering some new features and tools for our platform. And I'm going to go over some of them today and some sneak peeks as well. And I want to show you how you can build scalable hands-on labs for any tech stack. And in particular, I'm going to focus on three different aspects: the flexibility of our platform, the ability to remove obstacles to learning, and the quality of experience, not just for your learners or students, but also for the people that author content. So we're going to go ahead and talk about flexibility. Traditionally, Codio has offered a Linux container, and for many years, that's how people would interact with the Codio platform. But we now offer a cyber range and something that we're calling multi-cloud sandboxes. I'm going to walk you through kind of briefly what those are, the advantages that they offer, and so you can kind of get a better idea of the types of learning experiences that you can author in Codio. So let's start with the Linux container. Like I said, this is the original way in which you would interact with Codio. So here's a screenshot. This is very indicative of the type of content that we author. On the right-hand side, we have something called the guide, and in it you have all of the instructional content. So any code samples, any buttons to run, any questions to ask, any explanation of images, etc. That's all there. And on the left, you would have something that the student would interact with. In this case, it's our default IDE. But this could just as easily be, excuse me, Visual Studio Code. It could be RStudio. It could be Jupyter Notebooks, etc. We also offer access to the terminal because this is a full container. So if you want to pre-install software or dependencies for your students, you can absolutely do that. We also offer the ability to make that terminal student facing. So if this is a skill you want your learners to work on, you can have them handle all of the dependency management and things of that nature. They have root access to the terminal, so anything that you can do on a standard Ubuntu, you can do in Codio. So this is the main way, but I want to bring your attention to this demo course here that I've made. So if we take a look at some of these assignments, this one here, this is agentic programming with Crew AI. This particular assignment uses Hugging Face, LangChain, Snowflake, Databricks, Cloud Code. I think you're starting to get the idea here, right? That this container can run modern tooling that you want and your students need. So it's not just Python or Java or any of these traditional things that we kind of started out doing several years ago, but we're a very modern, very flexible platform when it comes to our containers. And the second way that you can interact with us is a cyber range. So here's a screenshot of the cyber range. And again, you'll notice that it's running inside the same tab. We've got the guide on the right, and on the left, you'll see here, this is Kali Linux. And again, so the cyber range allows you to run full VMs, multiple VMs at once, all on the same network. And so if you look carefully over here, you'll notice that it says Windows 10. So in this particular instance, we've got Windows 10 and in Kali running. And because they're on the same network, you can take the Kali Linux and use its suite of tools, and you can start to poke and prod the Windows 10 machine. We offer several VMs right out of the box. So Kali Linux, there's an Ubuntu without anything at all. It's just like the Ubuntu server. We've got Windows 10, we've got Metasploit, right? These are all available to you. And so if you're teaching a networking course, if you're doing cybersecurity content, if you're doing red team, blue team, purple team activities, the cyber range is a great opportunity for you to use Codio. In addition, we really want to go all in on this flexibility. So you could, on your local machine, you have a VM manager, you could download it and run an ISO in the VM manager, and you can configure it exactly the way that you want. And when you're done, I mean, this can go all the way down to what is the desktop wallpaper, username, credentials to log in, etc. And once you have that configured exactly the way you want, you can give that image back to Codio. And we will take that and put it in your cyber range. So just to let you know that the cyber range is unique to your organization. So just because you give us your image, it doesn't mean any Codio user can see it via the cyber range. Only those learners or students that are in your organization that have access to a cyber range, they can see that VM. But again, you can build custom VMs and have them run in your cyber range all on Codio. And the latest addition that we have is something that we call multi-cloud sandboxes. So here you have an example. So right now it works with AWS. Um, excuse me. And we're going to be adding support for Azure and Google Cloud as well. In this AWS dashboard, you're going to notice there's a lot of red saying access denied. And that was done on purpose. If you are teaching AWS, you're probably not teaching the entirety of the web service because there are many, many of them. You'll be teaching just a slice. And through a combination of policy and YAML files, you can actively deny access or grant access to different parts of AWS. And so that way, when one of your learners logs in, they will only see what you want them to see or be able to interact with the certain parts of AWS that you want them to interact with. But the neat thing here is that this is a throwaway metered account. So it will automatically be made when the student starts the project, and when they're done, it'll be thrown away, right? And we'll talk a bit more about multi-cloud sandboxes and some of the unique features that they have. But if, we're seeing more demand for people wanting to teach these web services with these sites, and they want a nice all-in-one package, and Codio is now able to do that. So when you take a step back and you look at the three different ways in which you can now interact with the Codio platform, you're seeing something very comprehensive. You can run modern tooling that gives learners the experiences that they need. Um, but it's not just software. So I want to go back and take a look at this demo course. So in this particular one, I'm not going to go into specifics of this particular assignment, but this Hugging Face assignment, what it does is it walks you through building this program, and it prompts the user for a description. So you could say, I want cool Caribbean vibes. And it takes that prompt and it generates music based on that prompt. And it also generates artwork that would go with that music. Now, that's a fairly resource intensive task. And so you'll see here, there's this label that says GPU. And so for tasks like this that need a little extra horsepower, we have the ability to turn on a GPU, and we have different types and different numbers of GPUs. That's all configurable in settings. But I just want you to know that yes, we can do software, but we can add some hardware as well. In this Databricks example down here, you'll see 2 GB, right? So Databricks is all about working with large data sets. And so if you're running a standard Linux box and you realize I need very large data sets, I need many of them, you're going to run out of space. And so we can provision extra space for you if you want to have some large data sets available in the container as well. And so you can see here how you can kind of mix and match and build modern learning environments, and you can interact with these different services and features like a cyber range or these sandboxes that just weren't possible before. And I just want to reiterate that we do integrate extremely well with GitHub. So if you want your students to be able to withdraw the work at the end of the time and have it and keep it for themselves, they can do that just by pushing to a Git repo. And the same thing goes for authoring. If you don't want the canonical version of your content to live inside Codio, you can have it live in a GitHub repo, and you can pull it down into Codio, and then the content's ready to go, and you can use Git to keep everything in sync. So we are an incredibly flexible platform, and we've added the ability to run cyber range and these multi-cloud sandboxes very easily to go along with our already powerful Linux containers. So I want to move on to this next point about friction-free and removing barriers to learning. And this starts with something as simple as logging on. We integrate with all of the major LMSs. So if your course is run through an LMS, we're not going to ask you to use us in addition to or instead of, right? we can use this LTI links, and you can add a link into, say, today's lesson in the LMS, and I click that link if I'm one of your students, and that will take me directly to Codio. I don't have to log in, I don't have to create an account, I don't have to navigate our dashboard. It takes me to the exact assignment that you want me to do. We've even had some people that will take Codio and embed it inside their LMS in an iframe. So that way you don't even have to leave the LMS to get all the benefits of Codio. But if you don't use an LMS, we do offer single sign-on. So again, we're not trying to have people make a second account, remember a second set of credentials, all of these things, right? We just want your learners to sit down, log in, and get to work. So in the previous several slides, I talked about the flexibility of the platform and all these great things that you can do and all the different features that you can modify and configure to your like. We also give you the ability to take these very specialized learning environments and reproduce them at scale. So if we look at our Linux container, we would call this a stack. So you can pip install, you can sudo apt install, you can get everything that you want ready to go on that container. And then you would save this as a stack. And then anytime you want to author content that needs the extra software, the dependencies, etc., you would just, when you in the authoring process, say, here's the stack that I made, use it, and then you start writing your content on it. And that way, all of your students have everything that they need to get to work. You can also make these stacks public. So if you're working with some peers and we're both teaching a data analytics course, we want to make sure that the learners are on the same page. Excuse me. We can use the same stack. So I can make a data analytics stack. I can make it public. You can use it as well. And then where all of the students begin at the same starting point. So for the Linux container, we call this stacks. For the cyber range, I already talked about how you can make a custom VM image on your own computer and just hand it off to Codio, and we will put it in the cyber range. But again, anytime that a student, and you would have to select when you create your content that we're going to run the cyber range on this page, and what VMs are you going to make available? You can go ahead and say, I want this custom VM there, and Metasploit and Kali or whatever. And then every student will get that selection of VMs that they can run simultaneously. And on the sandbox side, we talked about the policy and the YAML files. So what we do when, like I said, these are all kind of throwaway accounts. So Terraform will go ahead and take the policy file, and this is where you're saying things like allow access to this or deny access to that. And what it does is it will go ahead and construct that sandbox for the learner according to what you give permission to or what you restrict. And that way, every time that a student starts that project, Terraform's gonna run that same policy file and they're gonna get the same configuration, right? So we give you the ability to customize all the ways that you like, and then you can go ahead and work with a large number of students, and that's not going to be a problem. You're not going to have some people that have some pieces and missing other parts, right? Everyone will have the same starting point, and it doesn't matter how many students you have. One of the major things that we're seeing right now is that services like AWS or other cloud providers or any of the LLM providers are really popular. And understandably, accessing those services costs money. It is not a good user experience if I'm a student and I enroll in this course and I sit down to get going on, doing some generative AI things, and all of a sudden I've got to stop, create an account, log in or verify, attach a credit card, and have additional payment. And something is very similar with AWS, right? I have to make an account, attach a credit card, pay for the bill, all of that. It is not a good learning experience. And we take that away. So I'll start with sandboxes. So I want to quickly show you this right here. So this is a YAML file that I've been talking about. I don't know how visible that is. Let me uh, make it larger. Okay. So what you see here is this YAML file. So like I said, students are not asked to create an AWS account, right? The account, it uses the policy file and this YAML file, and it is generated for them. And when they're done, it's thrown away, right? There's no login, there's no payment, there's none of that. The problem is this does cost money. So how do you, it's great that we making this so easy to do, but how do you add cost certainty to this? And so what you'll notice here is that we have initially something called a lifetime. So we think this particular project is going to take 60 minutes to do. And we know life happens and things don't always go according to plan. So you have the ability to extend the lifetime of the project. And this is done in 10-minute increments. So if they're just like getting close to the 60 minutes initially, and they still have several more pages to go, they can click the button and they've just granted themselves 10 more minutes. And they can do that again, but you can set a lifetime max. So in this particular example, we're saying that no student can go past 120 minutes. Now, that's nice, but a large bill can be racked up in a maximum of 120 minutes. And so in this particular line right here is we're setting a limit. So we're saying this learner, no matter how long they spend in this project, they cannot go past $5. So we want to make this easy for your learners, that they don't have to make an account. They're not putting their own credit card in there, right? But we also want to make it easy for you to set it up, have them work it, and provide cost certainty. So you can set what is the billing limit, what are the time limits, and that way you kind of get these guardrails in place. And so you know that there's a certain amount of cost certainty, right? And you can use that when you set the price of whatever course that you're offering. So I'm going to just put this back just in case I don't want to mess with this. Let's talk about the LLM side of things. Something is very similar, right? So, how do we allow students to use LLMs without all those hoops to jump through of creating an account, et cetera, and provide cost certainty? We've come up with something that we call an LLM proxy, and I happen to think it's one of our more intriguing tools. So I'm going to go down here where it says LLMs, and I'm going to click on it for this course. And so you will see here we have some general settings. Okay, let me make this bigger. I don't know. All right. So we have, so the LLM proxy, of course, is a proxy server that sits between let's say OpenAI or Anthropic and your student. So if I'm a student and I want to access the LLM, I need an API key, and you get that key when you make an account. What we do is we provide this key, and then we've got this proxy server that will allow all the students in your course to use that same key and access the LLM. So they don't have to make an account to get an API key. We've already done that for them. And then we've also put in, and you'll see here that we've got OpenAI and Anthropic. Now, you might be thinking, that's nice, but I like to use Hugging Face or something from Llama or any other of the major providers that are out there. You can always tell us that you've got your own key that you want to use, Gemini, for example, and you can work with our devs and we can get that API key set up. So in your particular version, you would see your API key here. So you would toggle off the Codio ones and you would toggle on your API key. But again, it'll still work on the server and the student experience is just as seamless. So the way this works is if you use the Codio key, then we will monitor usage and we'll just send you a bill and say, your students used, X amount of dollars for this course using our OpenAI API key, then you can pay the bill and the students don't have to worry about it. If you provide your own key, then you'll have to handle the billing, and that's fine. And some large institutions have a really good relationship with these companies like OpenAI, and they can negotiate perhaps prices that we just couldn't get. So even if you're using OpenAI, you could say, hey, we got a better deal on it. Let's just use our own key and then we can go ahead and substitute it in. As for the guardrails, you'll see right here, this is either done by the hour or by the day. We can request, or excuse me, we can limit the number of requests or how much money they're spending. And then, like that YAML file, we can say, okay, for the overall course, this is how much they're allowed to spend. And if we scroll down, we'll kind of get some basic usage stuff. You'll see here, this is just a demo course, so it's not the most interesting. Pardon me, let me get a drink of water. But this dashboard allows you to keep tabs on, just what is this course costing us? And you can see the breakdown on the last 24 hours, 7 days, and roughly a month. Down here, you would look at all of the students, right? So you can notice students in your course that are spending way too much early on, and they might hit that limit before they get to the end of the content. And you can go ahead and message them and say, all right, let's slow down a bit, make sure you get through the content. And then if you want to explore, you can after the fact, right? But these are the guardrails that allow you to provide cost certainty um, when offering access to an LLM, right? Without all the hoops of having them to create accounts, enter credit cards, and handle the payment themselves. And so this is true for both LLMs and the sandboxes. Okay, so, all right. And the last point that I want to talk to you about is quality of experience. And like I said, we think about this from two different points of view. We think about it from the learner point of view, and then also if you want to author content, we've got plenty of tools in stock for you that we think are going to help you out and make you much more efficient at your job. So let's talk about the student experience first. One of the things we pride ourselves on is the feedback that we give. If you're familiar with excuse me, if you're familiar with our content, you'll know that there are reading questions at the bottom of every page. We have summative assessments in the form of coding exercises, and there's feedback given to students about the test didn't pass it for this particular reason, or this test case failed, and here's some stuff why. But we've also gone out and made something called Coach. So I'm going to take a look at this demo course again, but I need to go to Overview, and I'm going to just open, let's say, this one here. And you will see this icon appear in the bottom right corner. And so we pride ourselves on feedback, but we also pride ourselves on doing research first. So we know that students using AI to help them write code, it's a thing. Whether we like it or we don't like it, that's almost immaterial at this point, right? It's happening. So how do we provide students access to AI to help them write code in a responsible manner? And looking over research, we found that when they're not saying, please solve this problem for me, right? We found that there are three main ways in which students were asking or utilizing AI. Most obviously, they were saying, can you explain this error message? The next one is, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. Like, I can't even start this problem because I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. And the third way is, I've started solving this problem, but I'm stuck. I'm not quite sure what I should be doing next. And so we took those three things and we turned it into our little assistant down here called Coach. Now, I said there are three things, and you'll notice that there are five buttons. We'll get to those other two buttons in a second. But if this was a student account, they would see those three, right? So summarize what I need to do, explain an error, provide a hint on what to do next. And the student can click that and it will kind of take a look at the context of the page here and offer a response. But you'll notice we don't just give them a big text field that they could just write anything at all in, like solve this problem, right? So we did a study. You can take a look on our website. You can get a copy of the study, but you'll in that particular study, you'll see that the grades of students that used Coach compared to those that didn't. The grades were higher, the completion rates were higher. These are the kind of learning outcomes that you want to see. And these are the kind of learning outcomes that you can get with AI when you use it in a responsible manner. And so we call that Coach. We're really proud of it. We think it's a great feature. And I will talk more about some of these AI tools here in a bit, but we have this student facing one, and it's very powerful. Coach is turned on at the assignment level. So that means I can, if this is my course, I'm going to put it back in edit mode. I can turn it on for this assignment, but not that assignment. Or I want two of the three turned on for here, or one of them turned on there. These coach extensions is what they're called. Uh, you can write your own. So you can take any of the extensions that we have that they're available in GitHub. You can clone it and you can start making changes. You're just like, I like what you've done, but I want my students, I want the AI to do more for my students, right? And you can change it up. So you could add a whole new button altogether, or you can take what we have and modify, the guardrails that we put around the AI. But this is something that is extensible. It is something that you can offer to your students or not. It's totally up to you. But that is a major feature that we offer. Some of the other features that we talk about for quality experience, right? Everything's all in one tab. You don't have to sit there and say, I'm coding here, but I'm looking at material there, or any of that kind of stuff. Like, how many browser tabs do I open? Do I need an application on my local machine? Nope. You just need one browser tab, and everything is there, and it's all ready to go for your learners. So let's talk about the quality of experience for the authoring side of things. Um, we know we have a resource library. It's full of many great courses, but you may not see the course that is exactly what you want. Maybe you teach something completely different. Maybe you teach something that's similar but has a different spin on it, and what we have in the library isn't exactly what you want. So I can tell you from experience that authoring content is not a fast thing, right? It takes time, it takes effort, and I know those are things that not everyone has in just, tons of excess time and effort that you can just put into getting content into Codio. So we've been looking at some AI-powered tools to kind of help make this process a little bit faster and make you a little more efficient at it. And I want to walk you through some of them. And I'm even going to walk you through a really cool tool that is not quite ready yet, but I do want to give you a sneak peek of it because it is, I think, quite powerful and something that could really help you get a course up and running on Codio. So um, let's start down here with the coach extensions. Excuse me, not coach extensions, the AI assisted tools. So one of the tools that we have here is what we call a magic wand, and it looks like this. So if you've never seen Codio before, if I go into preview mode, this is kind of like this is what the student would see. This essentially is a blank page. I'm cheating. I'm putting a prompt here because I don't want to. You don't want to watch me type. But in the edit side of things, it's essentially Markdown in this editor, and you can see the rendered Markdown over here. And then we have some unique Codio syntax for a handful of things. So let's say that you're looking at something on recursion and you realize, well, I didn't really talk about dynamic programming. That's really important. So let's add a page on dynamic programming. Okay. So we can use the magic wand to help us generate some content. So I can click on here. In this box, this is where I'm going to add my prompt. So I'm going to take the prompt and I was going to say, give me something on dynamic programming. Of course, we're going to use the Fibonacci sequence, and we want to talk about the benefits of memoization. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and click generate, and this is going to take a few moments. And we believe in human in the loop. So a lot of this, excuse me, a lot of this stuff for the AI tools, you will see kind of a preview down below. and I can scroll down and kind of see like this is all the content. We'll take a look at this here in a second on the actual page so you get a better view of what it looks like. But I just want to show that you can kind of take a look at this and be like, all right, interesting. That's not quite what I want. Let me go ahead and refactor my prompt, regenerate it, and kind of get what you want. And eventually you can go ahead and approve it. So I'm just going to approve this as is. So you're going to notice as I scroll down that we've got, bullet pointed stuff, highlights about important, information. We've got examples, right? This is our Fibonacci sequence. We've got code samples. We talk about memoization, right? We've got a little thing of like, hey, try this, right? So you're actually timing it so you can see what happens when you do this with and without memoization, right? And we talk about the benefits. And again, this is all, bullet pointed, highlighted, right? And so it just takes a simple prompt. Now, this may not be exactly what you want. I mean, no AI is perfect, but you can see how this can speed things up for you. So you can go ahead and start making changes and say, on this particular one, I want to maybe extend this sequence or whatever, right? But the idea is that you can use this magic wand tool to kind of help you speed up content generation. So if you know what it is you want to say, that is, you have a prompt, but you don't actually have, actual content that you can copy paste directly into Codio, you can use the magic wand tool to help you speed things up. So I'm going to move on to the next page. So we're going to talk about formative assessment generation. So this is a general page about hashing dictionaries in Python. Uh, and like I said, we like to put lots of formative assessment at the bottom of the page. This one doesn't have one. Which is fine. But instead of manually making one, which you can do, you can see we have all kinds of assessments up here, right? Let's say because this is formative, I'm not going to do a code test, but I can turn around and say, all right, well, let's just add a multiple choice question. And I can manually fill this out, or I can go down, click down here where it says generate, and it's going to use AI. And so again, you've got an area where you can put in a prompt and then you can generate, and then you can approve. But in this particular example, I'm not going to put a prompt. I'm just going to go ahead and click generate using AI. And the reason I can do this is because our tool takes this page of Markdown and it automatically uses it as context. So you'll see right here, it says which of the following Python data types can be used as a dictionary key, select all that apply, right? And that is very much a question that is on target for this particular page. So you don't necessarily need to offer a prompt in here when you're generating these formative assessment questions. One of the ways I like to use this prompt is to nudge the question in a direction that I want. So, for example, instead of just kind of saying like, what are these things that can be used as keys, right? Which is one of the main points of the page, and I want the students to think about code. I could turn around and just in that prompt area and say, give the students a sample of code and have them predict the output. And it would totally change the look and feel of this particular multiple choice question. Or I could say, give the students a sample of code and have them select the error, right? So again, it's a very powerful tool to automatically make these formative assessment questions. But if you have a certain style of question you want, you just put that in the prompt area and it will generate that question for you. So I'm going to go ahead and click approve. You'll see right here, again, it filled that in. It filled in all the different types right here. Under grading, I've got an answer and rationale that can be shown to the students. And if I click create, I've now got a question at the bottom of the page. So the ability to generate formative assessments, it just speeds it up, right? And again, there's a human in the loop, so you can adjust and make changes anytime you want. But it's not just formative assessment questions that it can do. It can also do summative assessment. We tend to think of that as coding exercises. So again, I wrote down this prompt because you don't want to watch me type. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add an assessment. And this time I'm going to add a standard code test. The standard code test is what we call an input-output tests, right? For this input, I expect this output, and you give a bunch of test cases. If you pass all the test cases, you get full points for this particular assignment. So again, I'm going to come down here under generate. This time I am going to give it a prompt. I'm telling it exactly I want this function called is nested, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to click generate with AI. It does take a little bit of time occasionally. This is taking a little bit longer than I anticipated. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit approve. And I'm going to, I don't like showing that, just a personal thing. And I'm going to, all right, here we go. So now we're writing a nested dictionary detector, right? And so it asks you to, tells you everything that you need it to do. It says, hey, for this input, you're going to do this. You'll get see false. If I give it this input, you'll see true, etc. And then I've got a button to check the student code. And if I look at this again, you're going to see that I've got under grading, it tells me exactly, right? I've got this is what I pass it. These are the test cases, right? I can scroll down. I can adjust these if I want, if there's some kind of edge case that I want to show them that they're not getting. I can add more test cases if I want. And again, we've got answer and rationale provided for us as well. So this is a really good example of how we can add summative assessments and save a little bit of time by using our AI-powered tool. We also have an assessment type that we call LLM-based or LLM-based grader, excuse me. And this is interesting because you can add a little bit more flexibility to the problem. So in this particular example, it assumes we're working with Express and we're setting up a router and we want to do a get, put, and delete request for a route. Now, if I were to manually do this, right, and I were to use some testing framework, this route would have to be explicitly labeled. So you would have to tell the student, all right, you're going to build the customer's route and it's going to, do get, put, and delete for, customers in this database or whatever the case may be, right? But if you wanted to allow your students to have a little bit of flexibility that, let's say they're a sports fan and instead of they don't want to talk about customers, they want to talk about players. So they're going to make a players route. Well, that would fail under the test because it would be checking the customer's route and they wrote players route. It doesn't matter if the rest of the code is right or wrong, right? It's just the route name is different. And so when you write formal tests with a testing framework, everything has to be very, very specific. But we know that students are engaged in their learning if you can kind of give them a little more autonomy, right? If they're invested in what they're working on, they're more engaged. They kind of stick to things when things get rough. They kind of they stick to it a bit more. And so by using this LLM-based grader, we can offer a bit of that. So what you need to understand about this is that we need to give it an actual solution first, right? So as the instructor, I'm going to give them this set of code and it's our boring customer one, right? But that's not a big deal. But do have to provide a sample solution so this grader can kind of look at that and say, okay, these are the types of things that I'm checking. So I'm going to add an assessment. I'm going to add the LLM, yeah, the LLM rubric. Here we go. And this time there's no generate button, so I need to give it a name. Well, we'll call it router problem. Um, we need to give it some instructions. Submit your code for value. So here we go, grading. Okay, so solution file. Oh, right. So I need to actually have a file. And so over here, I have a .guides folder and I have a secure folder. Um, This is a very special folder. It is separated from the students. It is not in their file system. So when the students run this, they will not see .guides. They can do not have access to .guide or .guide secure. So you can comfortably put solution files in .guide secure, but only .guide secure, and they won't see it. So I'm going to take this solution file. I just kind of drag it over here, and it puts in the file path. And this is where the LLM works. I'm going to say generate rubrics, right? So based on the context of the page, because remember, we have the context of the page, which understands this problem area, and the context of this solution file, let's generate rubrics. And again, I can be very explicit in here and I can say, like, I want you to do this and we're going to evaluate this. And I can tell it everything that I want. But in this particular case, I'm going to leave it blank just to show you what it does. I'm going to say generate using AI, and it's going to create a set of rubrics, right, of what the student code should be able to do. And so you'll see correctly implement a router to handle get, put, and delete requests, right? For a specific route with proper parameter handling. Notice it doesn't say, even though the solution said customer, that's not in the rubric, right? It's the customer route in the sample solution, but not here, right? Implements the get request, right? Implements a put request, uh, implements a delete request. Then we got down here error handling for all routes. Okay. And code is well structured, follow consistent formatting, uses appropriate variable names, etc. Right? So just based on this very simple problem definition and the solution code, it came up with all these rubrics. And again, I can weight these rubrics. Or if I think, this one isn't as important as some of these others, so maybe everything else is weighted as a two or whatever the case may be, you can do that. But you can adjust these rubrics in the description. You can add your own rubrics if you think it's missing, right? I'm not going to put in a solution and rationale right now, but I'm going to just go ahead and say create. And so now we have the ability to um, evaluate the code in this file. And this is the customer's one. So if I check it, it should pass all of the different rubrics because this is the exact code that was in the given solution file. But then I want to show you that you can turn around and use a different route and also pass the test and not have any issues there as well. Uh, if it's going to take this long, then I probably won't go through and show you. But just, I guess you're going to have to take my word for it. But you can, all right. So you can see everything here passed, right? Uh, so we passed all of these things. But if I take the solution, here we go. So you hear this is the player's route, and I can run this test again. You should see that it also passes because what we're really after is, are you doing these requests, not necessarily the route that it's on. So you can give students more autonomy when it comes to writing, creating projects and evaluating those projects, right? Not everyone has to build the same project, but everyone has to build a project that covers the same principles. This would be a good way to have a grader attached because we're not looking at the exact code. We're saying, like, are you doing these things in the rubric? Are you doing these general ideas? And so you'll see here, it passes all of these as well. Okay, so let's go on and talk about coach extensions. So we talked about coach from the student point of view, and you saw how you could get assistance. Um, as a content author, can get assistance with coach. The coach extensions I'm going to show you here today, these were made by Codio. They are available in a GitHub repo. You can clone it. You can make your own. It's You do have to understand there's an API that we developed for these extensions. You would have to look, it's documented. You would need to go through and look at that documentation, and it uses JavaScript. But this is not something that is just beyond your grasp to do. So let's take a look here, and you'll see in this particular page of content, I have a graphic. It's represented here on line 7 in Markdown. There's no alt text. This is not good, right? Every image should have alt text for accessibility reasons. So how would I give robust description to what's going on here? Well, we can turn around and say, let's generate the alt text for all the images. It would do all the images in this assignment, right? And so you can just add the image without an alt text, click a button. You'll see right here that it says searching on page 1. It found an image on this page. There is the alt text, right? And no images or anywhere else, right? On pages 2, 3, or 4. No more images. Everything is done. But there you go. I've got a robust alt text for this image. And so this can be a big time saver for you as well. I'd like to show you here, we've got 4 pages, if else, there's another thing on if else, and then we've got some formative assessment. What we're missing is learning objectives. Well, it would be nice if every assignment that your students use, there's a learning objectives page. Well, instead of having to write learning objectives page yourself, you can turn around and use this particular coach extension, and it's going to look at all the pages in the assignment and say, okay, what are the important things that we're talking about here? And let's generate a page of learning objectives. And I'll close this. And you'll see here that it's formatted nicely, and it tells you, the correct syntax for if-else statements, et cetera, right? So there you go. You've got learning objective page, and that is all done through our coach feature. So it is extensible. It's extensible on the student-facing side, but it's also extensible on the content author side of things. So again, you'll notice that I have these 2 buttons. So any extension that you add, the buttons will appear. You've got a dashboard where you can say, I'm not working on this project anymore. I don't need this particular extension. You can disable it and it'll disappear from the list, et cetera, et cetera. So we have these features here to help you write content because we know getting content into Codio, it's not an easy task. It's not trivial. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. So how can we help you get better at that? And in the spirit of that, I'm going to go ahead and give you a sneak peek of something that we are working on. It's in early alpha development, so it's going to change from what you see today. The current name that we're using is the course migration tool, but that might change. So let's assume that at the end of this talk, you are just bowled over by all the features that Codio offers. You want to get your course into Codio, but you don't have a lot of time to do it. You don't have an army of TAs or other colleagues that can help you out, right? But you do have a set of lecture notes that you've been using, you know is battle tested, you trust it, and that's what you want to serve as the foundation of your course. So I have here an example of a PDF. This is just like your intro to Java stuff, right? So basic intro to Java slides that you would use in a lecture. I've got this. I want to turn this into something that works in Codio. So this tool, the course migration tool, um, this is what it looks like. So I would give it a name. Organization that is a Codio related thing. If you have you would have one organization, you would it would probably auto populate. But as an employee, I'm a member of several organizations, so it doesn't auto-populate it for me. And up here, it says I can choose your files. So you could say, choose the file, get that PDF, but it doesn't have to be a PDF. It could be Markdown, it could be a code file, it could be Microsoft Word, it could be a text document, right? It could be anything. So, well, not anything, but we're trying to be as flexible as possible for your the material that you have for your course. So I would upload it here. I would click this button. I did this in advance. This takes time, obviously. I didn't want you to spend several minutes for you just watching this kind of churn out text. But at the end, it says course material upload complete, follow the link. So I gave it a name, CS1 Java, and here we go. So I'm going to click on this. it's going to open a new tab, and here's the course that it made. So it took those slides. Now, that wasn't a complete slide set for everything on Introduction to Java, right? It was just a handful of slides, and it turned it into 5 modules of content. So let's go ahead and just take a look at one of these modules. So I'll go into edit mode. I'm going to go into Java Language Fundamentals. And because it's the first time we're opening this, it is a little bit slower. That is to be expected. All right, here we go. We've got a learning objectives page. In fact, let's just take a look at what do we have. So we've got Java ecosystem and programming philosophy, the core elements of vocabulary, methods, and advanced elements, and then we added a coding exercise at the end. There were no coding exercises in that PDF of slides, right? So let's just take a look. So you'll see here about programming languages, and everything's divided up. We've got these call out boxes. Again, I want to remind you that this is early alpha. We're actively giving feedback to the research team and to the development team. What you see today is going to be is not what we're going to ship. At the bottom of the page, we have a reading question. So I can come over here. Hmm. Did not expect that. So you'll see again, we've got stuff and over here, flow and control. So we talk about different keywords, right? You'll see here we go. We've got some, yeah, print and math.py, right? One of the things you'll notice is that this is a single page layout. Um, to be clear, the course migration tool is not going to do 100% of course creation. That's not what it's doing. It's not generating new content or anything like that. It's only taking the information that it has and trying to get it into Codio. There are going to be a handful of things that you should do at the end of the course. I mean, this is AI after all. No AI is perfect. And you want to verify some stuff. So if you want a double page layout or any of that kind of stuff, you need to adjust it. It kind of defaults to this single page. And again, things will change between now and release. And here we go. Here's our coding exercise. And so we're asking it to do some stuff. So here's a code file that it wants the student to use. You'll see we've got freeze blocks here, right? So this is code that the student can't change. This solution block here, this is code that the student be expected to write. But when the student sees it, everything in this block will be replaced with a comment that just says, write your code here. Um, so yeah, I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time for questions. Um, but really, this is what actually let me just come back to here. All right. So if you like what you see, or if you're just vaguely interested, I would encourage you to make an account at Codio. You can use the URL on the screen. Accounts are free. The only time we're going to ask you to pay any money is if there are students in your account, students in your course, right? So you can join, your colleagues can join, you can get content from our resource library, and you can go through it yourself. You can go through it as a test student, right? That will not incur any cost. You can play with all of these tools. You can author content yourself. You can't use the course migration tool quite yet. Again, we're working hard to get that released, and stay tuned to Codio, and we'll be sure to announce when we do finally get it released. But start here, make an account. And then you can start playing around with Codio. But I hope you see through the course of this talk, right, that we've added a lot of features to our platform. We're no longer just a Linux container company. We've got a cyber range. We've got multi-cloud sandboxes. We give you the ability to highly customize these things. So if you want to run a course on agentic programming, you can do that, right? We'll give you the tools to do that. We'll give you the tools like the LLM proxy so that your students and learners have a really good user experience. They don't have to jump through any hoops. They don't have to make any additional payments, right? The same thing with the sandboxes. No account creation, no payment on their behalf, right? We handle all of that for you, right? And so you really can build just about any learning experience you want in Codio. We are that powerful. We are that flexible.